I'm showing you the repository because I'm going to run it and I'm going to hack it together for a bit. But essentially, it has a tutorial, and you could actually go like a self-paced through this, which I'll show at the end also, like through the stuff that we hack. I'm running Mongo through Docker, so that's like fairly easy to do. DBS seed, which essentially just adds usernames to the database, so like we can log into the system. npm run dev, and basically have done all of that, and that's it. That's kind of like the only thing that you need. This is one of the views that I have. This is essentially my terminal running MongoDB here. Another one if we need it, just cloned or fork the repo. So I just did npm run dev here, so we have those. And if I go to localhost 5,000, 5,000, I'm in. How did I get in? Let's see. So when you see this, right, like this is how the app starts. You see this, it's like an employee retirement savings management platform, right? Called Retire Easy. It's nice. It has a bunch of things in here. You know, it seems decent enough that that some enterprise other systems that I've seen kind of like this looks the same. So like this is pretty realistic from that endpoint.
Actually, wait a minute. This might be my retirement account is running this software. This might not be good.
Let me fix it. Let me fix it for you. Let me do this thing here. I'm gonna take really good care of you.
Yeah. Give me all that money.
There we go. There we go. There you go.
All right, you saw it here, folks. It looks like I'm getting a bonus at work.
Definitely, for sure. And yeah, just send us. You should talk about open jobs and careers. Just send them over to Snyk. This is what we pay people. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but it's a joke.
We're just kidding. We're just kidding, chat. Okay.
Maybe, I don't know. We'll say.
All right, we got the name.
Submit. And for example, okay, great. For example, I'll just copy paste it, because do you know what developers really do? They don't code, they just copy paste stuff. So I'm gonna do this.
No, I only ever write original code.
You sit on a throne of lies.
This is like the normal way of like using an app, but hackers don't do that, right? They do different things. They say, hey, there's input here. I can use that to send something else. What would you paste in here?
Mayonnaise.
Alrighty then.
Okay, I don't know how you spell that, but I'll go with this.
You said paste. I don't know why. My first thought of paste was mayonnaise, like you paste it onto a sandwich, you know? No, but maybe they want to put in, I don't know, they try to enter in an image, or they try to drop a file in there or something, or basically you try to put in things that are not expected.
Like
get creative. Yeah, that sounds good.
Like this.
Image source equals that. Yeah, and then on error function, is that alert? Okay.
SQL injection and XSS attacks by all first. That's correct. Let's try one of them.
Yeah.
Oh,
that worked.
Oh my god! Okay, it's happening.
But I mean, Ron, what's the big deal? Like you just made an alert pop up in your own browser. That's not scary or bad, right?
True. I can pick some more things like document cookie, and if your cookie is not managed correctly, or other cookies. And so that means it shouldn't be possible to query it from like the JavaScript side of things from the browser, but rather only over HTTPS. So I don't know how it is here, but maybe I can look at all the contents of it. And now it looks like I can query it, but it's nothing, or whatever is like giving the null or undefined. Yeah. But I can do all of those things. But I like that you asked that, because we use alert all the time. And this is also subject to this issue. Let's go back to, okay, just so that, okay, so like we're here, no XSS anymore, but it's as possible and as easy to do the simple script stuff as well.
Really? That's super vulnerable then, okay. So I can run
super vulnerable. Correct. And so back to that question, like why is it, running a script alert is like, well, I can do just JavaScript, but yes, now I can do JavaScript, a persistent JavaScript, a persistent XSS issue here, which means any user who might browse, my name, or if it's rendered in a list or in this dropdown, will have JavaScript code executed for them. So essentially, if there's, I'll save it so like it doesn't bother us anymore. But if there's like ways to do different things, like do a different contribution assets of like what I want to put into my retirement fund, or I want to like transfer money from this to the other. That's probably just like a JavaScript call, right? Like that's just an XHR thing going a request. I can run that from a JavaScript thing. So I can actually transfer money and do actions that you essentially didn't want to do, but I'm doing them in your name. So XSS is like just running JavaScript on the browser on the client side. Is essentially most of the time it's end game. Of course, it depends on like how the app is built. What are you doing stuff? Are you like having stuff, sensitive things in local storage, which again like end the game and stuff like that, or might need more work. But yeah, you do not ever want to have XSS in your apps.
You got me thinking like another avenue that I could maybe use this to my advantage if I'm an attacker. Like maybe I have an account and I know like I need there's an admin elevated privileged user that has more access to things to maybe view other people's accounts, right? And I get them to go to my account and I have that script in there and I can maybe get their their tokens or whatever it may be for an admin and take over their account, and then be able to see everybody's retirement savings stuff and do all kinds of nefarious things, right?
Definitely. And there's a bunch of XSS too. There's like persistent and there's stored XSS and like different types of XSS, which might not seem like it's working, but it actually is, because it like depends how you trigger it. And there's like other like mutation, DOM mutation based XSS, like different things that like exotic ways of essentially trying to trigger XSS on a page. That we don't want to have happening, but it happens, and it happens even for modern applications. But why does this happen? Like before we drill into something else, so let's kind of like try to think of. Let me go. So it's fairly split between what I'm actually doing in this application, and you see it's kind of modern, kind of not. But so far it uses Express, it uses some other Swig and MongoDB the connector and some other stuff. So Swig, if you haven't heard of that before, that's kind of like a template engine. So if I go to like my view,
you gotta love the JavaScript ecosystem and their naming of things, right?
True.
I want to take a swig of that. That's what I think of.
So, but you do see here, there's like this is like a template engine, right? Like this allows you to essentially render HTML on the backend or JavaScript here. Well, not render it, but like deliver it, prepare the page, and move it back dynamically where you render it on the server side. So it has this like first name safe string supposedly, last name, and some other things. But first name here, which is where we added stuff in here, the JavaScript stuff. This is, I don't know if it's supposed to be like this is supposed to be like the raw version of how you push things in, or is this maybe is it like, why is it not sanitized? So this goes back into how you're using Swig. So if I go back into where was my view? Oh, sorry, this is the view. Where was my server.js? There we go. So I'm using Swig. If I search for the way that I'm using it, right, there's like I'm setting it as like the view engine. And there we go. So this is an issue, because if you basically start it up and the default is going to be that you auto escape false, as in you are not escaping, output escaping the input, that means whatever someone puts in, it just gets rendered. If that's like an HTML element, that's it. So you could fix it simply by doing true. But would you have known of doing that? Or if you had to copy paste that code of like, if the default is not to escape it for some reason, some libraries don't do that by default, then like, you're kind of like, maybe you're not even aware that you might be vulnerable to XSS.
Yeah. So it's like when you're picking out these open source libraries to use that are super helpful to have, you got to see if they have security features turned on by default, or if you need to look at their configuration options and turn those on in some cases, right?
Exactly. And I'll give you a really good example, which I always go back to. Let's go to Snyk/advisor. And I'm bringing this up so you can see the popularity of one of those packages. If you wanted to use a markdown parser and translate markdown into HTML, which essentially is like, how you write markdown today, like GitHub, README, all of that stuff, that's how it works, right? So marked is a very popular markdown parsing library, and to the extent of like this has like 5 million, almost 5 million weekly downloads, like super popular. But there was a point in time a few years back where Mark did not have its markdown parsing thing capability is sanitized as a default safe way of doing it. Since it wasn't turned on by default, basically anyone who would like this was a proper exploit. Imagine that this is hello markdown that I can use to provide you with a link. So I could do something as simple as this. You see here it's a sanitized. If I hadn't turned on that default for that this popular library that gets millions of downloads, this would have worked. Like you had to like specifically understand how to use it as well. Yeah. So this is like super important. Plus, it can just be that you forgot to do it, or like, friend told you to do it and forgot to tell you like how to do stuff. Anyway, now like we know how to find it. And look at the curly braces here, right? Like that's telling you several things. First of all, yeah. It's like,
is that VS Code or?
It's both. It's two things here. Basically, I've got like the curly because of I've got like the spelling thing always on. So it's not recognizing it, but also I've got the Snyk code extension here. So every time I write something that's insecure, it's going to tell me the auto escape setting is set to false. Disabling it might allow for cross-site scripting as we've seen. If user input is involved, Snyk code security. So I can go find more of this, and I'll show you a bunch more of like here. I'm just like using stuff, and it automatically finds all of them. I don't need to wait for like a CI. It's like pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's not rendering there or anything, but yeah, like this is nice. So let me show you some other stuff. So let's do more interactive stuff. Imagine this is your input. What do you do here if you wanted to like abuse this from a security standpoint?
Oh, maybe negative. What if you did negative? Could you enter negative so then it gives you more towards your paycheck each payroll period?
At your service. Let's do 1. See what
Okay.
it does. Okay, it does change it successfully. Okay. Isn't it true that every time you see this toaster message, you know that it's Bootstrap, right?
Yes, yeah.
Invalid contribution percentages. It has error handling built in. Nice. What else? What could we do here? Anything from -1 vortex?
Well, -1
Or
says we
someone
should
else.
hack it. That's what we should do. Not a number. Try something that's not a number, says Bleachin.
Not a number. I'll literally try.
Not a number. Valid contributions. Okay.
More ideas?
What about symbols? Like just put a % in there. Whoa. We broke it. Yeah, go me.
Go you.
Alf says we're in now. That's
Yes.
our key to the kingdom, I guess, in this app now.
True. So I'll do it in a reverse way. I'll show you the code and you tell me what to enter here to make it fun.
Ooh, okay.
Here is the code for it. Handle contributions update. Go for it. I'm just showing this horrible code to people, so they're like don't do this, don't do this.
Stop it. Get some help.
Yeah. All right, take a swig of your coffee.
Okay.
In all the years I've been programming with JavaScript, I don't think I've ever used the eval function. Like even before I knew it was not a safe thing to do, I've never used it. So it's always interesting to me to see it actually in code.
Yeah.
I like your terminal prompt, by the way. Very nice.
Thank you. It's we should say thank you to Matan. It's a Starship.
Oh, nice.
Prompt. There you go. So, Node.js. Yeah. So essentially, this vulnerability that we're seeing here, code injection in Node.js, in this popular, back then, template engine, is using eval in one of its helpers. You see it's like very documented here, function to evaluate if statements, blah, blah, blah. And here it is, part of the code. And if some code flows here unsanitized, then, again, like game over, because you essentially run JavaScript side code dynamically, right? Like on the server side for every request.
Yeah. So in that case, it's a templating engine, but why wouldn't I guess I'm still struggling to follow. Maybe you can explain it to me, Laurent. Why would they need to evaluate a condition via that if statement,
Yeah. So here's the logic. Give the full context.
Yeah.
This is the templating engine view file. So I have this dust file, and it allows me. So the whole point of using like template engines is that you are generating them dynamically on the server side. So you could say, if a user has like, this amount of, I don't know, dollars or basketballs, then I want to show them this and that picture, whatever, like update the CSS stuff inline, whatever. So I can actually do this if condition on the server side, and it matches whatever this like magic variable is, or wherever it's coming from. So this part of it, if condition, lets you as a developer put the value of that condition here dynamically, whatever you want. So to do that, essentially what you're seeing here, if condition equals something, this whole string goes back into here. And that's how it's evaluating it.
That makes more sense.
So this is, yeah. I mean, maybe you can do it in a different way, but like that's the way that they've chosen to do it. So yeah, I totally get that like 99% you never want to use eval, and like that's like maybe the wrong use for it. But some, like we've seen, some people have used that, and there's like different ways of using it. And I'll tell you something else. There's like different ways of using eval, which are not this, right? Like if you do node and you want to do stuff like Brian sums is a new function. That's also a dynamic way of doing it. Now, of course, because of new function, right? But there are like other like pitfalls and gotchas that actually take this. Like if you do set, like you use set timeout, like even like a React developer here. But if you do use set timeout, this one, which is a function call and then like a delay, that function call doesn't have to be a reference. This can be, again, an actual blah, 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 blah code in string function call that will get evaluated.
Okay.
And for some reasons, if some user input flows here, that's like, again, that this is like bad.
Gotcha. No, I appreciate that. I've always kind of, anytime I've seen vulnerabilities around eval, I'm like, well, I can't relate so much because I've not had to use eval, but those are use cases that make a lot of sense. Thank you for going down that rabbit hole with us a little bit. We left off with the question of what can we enter into that new payroll contribution percentage? And I see -1 Vortex had an answer for us. What about this? So 0 semicolon console log and then the process env in there. Let's see if that works.
Well, I'm not going to give you process env because that's on my machine, but yeah.
It's on your machine?
But I appreciate this.
Not today, sir.
I'll give you process gate instead. And
-1 Vortex is trying to hack you now, Laurent.
Yeah, I'm fairly aware of that. So it did some stuff. It looks like maybe it didn't do it, but we can go to where am I running this server on? I'm running it over here, right? And this is the process ID. So remember, this is running server side. Here is the process ID.
-1 says -1 says they would only steal your hat, nothing else.
I appreciate that. I'm very fond of this hat, so yeah, no, that's gonna happen.
I guess so. You can choose enter in stock values there. Is that what that is, or so? What?
Okay, no locations code for the user.
Oh.
So essentially, what happens here is we're getting the user ID, right? And the threshold, whatever. We're just doing get by user ID threshold and returning this. So what we're doing is this insecure direct object reference. We have successfully done whatever is needed functionally, but we haven't tested that an authorization level that my user that's logged in right now has access to actually view user ID too. Maybe it does because I'm an admin or whatever. But if he or she don't have those accesses, then they shouldn't. So essentially, this is as easy as doing something like, if, what did we do? Request session, wherever I have it. Maybe it's here, I don't remember. But if this is the same as user ID, then this whole block gets inside. If it's not, I can say, hey, your user ID doesn't match that which you should, what you're trying to access, and therefore, access denied. Like you can do this in different ways. Maybe you could have like an owner next to the records. Like maybe your database is modeled in a way where you set up like who's the owner for it, maybe who created it, different ways, and then you compare those to the session user, right? Not the requested user. So like different ways of doing it, but the kind of the meaning of this stays the same. What stays the same here is the fact that you should really like check for the fact that no one really has direct access to these objects.
I think this also, I'm vaguely remembering, like we should potentially ID things randomly more so than
Oh
so that
yeah,
it's not guessable, right? So that at least adds not that it's like it's a perfect defense against this type of thing, but it makes it a little bit more difficult for people to guess like what somebody's user ID is.
yeah. Incremental user IDs is for this kind of stuff is probably a bad idea. Some people are probably like, hey, is this like a real thing, like insecure direct object reference? Well, people, there we go. Let me show you some links I've prepared in advance for some people finding this. I'm pretty sure people are aware what Shopify is. If not, it's like a online commerce stuff, helps you build stores and do e-commerce stuff. Here we go. IDOR. Shopify had this insecure direct object reference, which someone found out about it. Security researcher worked with through a bug bounty program, earned $750. Right? This is kind of like showing you like there's like smart, like really smart people at Shopify. We're developers, but we're not. We may be running like amazingly performant and great code that runs on spaceships, but no one tells us how to write like secure code, right? Like security is kind of like batch to the side and stuff like that, which is why you have all of those bug bounties programs by people at companies like at Microsoft and Facebook and Shopify and all of those, because essentially they understand that this is a real risk. So here it is, another one. So it's from Microsoft Teams having IDOR. Again, full story, you can go in, see like how things manifested. By the way, some of those things, they're like so severe that sometimes they're finding something that looks to you like it's very simple. It's like it's maybe just data leakage or something like that. But they can do some lateral movement. Like it gives them access to some other account that has some stuff in it that's actually like more important. And then that gives them more access. And they kind of like dive, and dig deeper into the details and the system. And they do so much reconnaissance that they actually find out very, very sensitive information. Sometimes they can, from that point on, even pivot to like things like code injection and remote command execution and stuff like that. So it's like super important to understand that those concepts might seem very simple and naive, but they could lead to something very, very bad. So that's IDOR for us. And it gave me like two, I would say very fairly and recent from 2020 examples of how these things are even happening in real life.
Wow, yeah. And at big name companies where there's lots of people reviewing the code and trying to ensure things like that don't happen. So that's pretty wild.
True. I know we're almost on time. I just kind of like, or at time, but being mindful of the stuff here, there's like a bunch of the stuff that we find here that the Snyk code extension finds for us, like this, and the obvious thing, there's like some sanitize input here, which is an interesting one of like how XSS happens in a different way than what I showed you before, SQL injections and some other things. I highly recommend going through the repository here of this open source Node code thing and just like trying it out. There's like a tutorial there that you could go through. If you have questions also, like, you can just run this. Come join us on Discord, ask questions about this, and we'll be happy to run you through this. Yeah, I think we can even like do more of those if you want to schedule maybe like a future session on this, Brian. Dive into more of those vulnerabilities there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just sharing the links to the repo that we're going through, just that we showed some examples of over on github.com/OWASP Node. And then to join our Discord, there's a link there, devseccon.io/Discord community. Link is in the chat and on screen now for people to watching the recording. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Laurent. And
thank you everyone for joining us.
Yes, we hope you have a good rest of your day wherever you are. We'll see you next time. Adios. Bye-bye.